After becoming Hoak Tuan's Canary and following him north to Beijing, I began skimming money like a maniac. He gave me 3 yuan to buy groceries. I secretly kept 2.900. As a result, he ended up eating premium pork that cost a shocking 245 yuan per jin. He gave me 50.000 to buy a high-quality bed. I pocketed 40.000 of it. So every time we rolled around, the bed creaked like it was about to collapse. Later, he handed me 1 yuan to buy condoms. I thought that was such a waste. So I kept 900. And that's how it happened. Staring at the 2 glaring red lines in my hand, I cautiously tested the waters. Do you like kids? Hoak Tuan glanced at me and shook his head indifferently. No. The moment I heard that firm rejection, I panicked, afraid he'd discover the pregnancy. I scooped up all the money I'd skimmed over time and ran away overnight. But before I could even breathe a sigh of relief after getting home, I saw Hoak Tuan, who was supposed to be away on a business trip, standing rigidly at the door, holding an ultrasound report. His voice was low and cold. You usually skim money and I let it slide. But this time, you were even planning to keep my child all to yourself? My family had gone bankrupt. Because my face vaguely resembled his white Moonlight, the one who had studied abroad with him, I managed to climb into the position of Canary beside him. I thought I'd be following the usual script. A crown prince should be generous. Even spending money on a canary should start at hundreds of thousands. If I played it right, I could easily stash away $1 million. But after living with Hoak Tuan, I realized life was nothing like that. He was generous, yes, but only when it came to shared living expenses. To put it bluntly, the title of Canary sounded impressive. But in reality, I was doing the job of an official girlfriend. Actually, more than that, I was pulling double duty. Truly worthy of a ruthless capitalist, precise, calculating, airtight. But where there's a policy, there's a workaround. If he didn't give me pocket money, I'd issue it to myself. The plan worked perfectly for me. The only one who suffered was him. For example, tonight, he came home from work, sat down at the dining table, and stared at the 4 dishes in front of him. Stir-fried pork with radish, except there was way more radish than pork. Stir-fried pork with green peppers, mostly peppers. Kelp stir-fry, hardly any meat. Braised beef with potatoes, where the potatoes took up almost the entire dish. He stared, disbelief in his voice. 3,000 yuan for groceries. And this is all you bought? Seeing his pupils shake violently, my throat went dry, but I forced myself to lie. You don't understand. This is imported black pork, 245 yuan per jin. The radish is organic, 300 yuan each. The green peppers are hand-grown, 500 yuan per jin. And the kelp was harvested by hand from deep-sea waters. Very expensive. I lied straight-faced, even putting on a serious expression. When I finished and looked up, I met his deep, unreadable gaze. He stared at me for a long time without saying a word. I thought he'd expose me on the spot. Instead, he suddenly laughed. After laughing, he said nothing more, just lowered his head and ate. I froze. What are you laughing at? Before I could figure it out, he put down his chopsticks, said he wasn't full, and directly scooped me up in his arms. I'm not full, then eat more food. Why are you carrying me upstairs? I struggled a little, but it was useless. In the end, Hoak Tuan tossed me straight onto the bed. The moment I landed, the bed let out a loud creak. Hearing the sound, his brows furrowed slightly. What was that noise? I played dumb and shamelessly improvised. Background music, premium edition. A few days earlier, our old bed had collapsed. He gave me 50 yuan to buy a sturdy new one. I took the chance to give myself a raise, pocketed most of the money, and only dared to buy a discounted bed online. It cost just 199 yuan. The ad was flashy, super shockproof, ultra durable. Who knew it would be this loud? Total scam. Those sellers were despicable. But obviously, this wasn't the time to settle accounts with merchants. Afraid of being exposed, I quickly wrapped my arms around his neck, kissed him, and smiled awkwardly. Doing it dry is boring. With background music, there's more atmosphere. I tried desperately to save the situation, not realizing that to him, this sounded like blatant provocation. Hoak Tuan gave a cold laugh, lowered his head, and ground his teeth. Not intense enough for you? Then don't beg for mercy tonight. That's not what I meant. The bed creaked all night long. The process was absurd, but the result made me extremely satisfied, because he never noticed I'd skimmed the money. Perfect. After that, my courage grew. I started eyeing the most expensive expense in the house, family planning supplies. This stuff could be used up in one night. If he used a little less, wouldn't I be able to pocket more? So next time he gave me 1 yuan and told me to buy enough for one night. I secretly kept 900 and only bought 2 boxes. I had a plan. Pretend to be tired. Limit his frequency. Efficient. Profitable. The idea was beautiful. Reality was brutal. I said I was tired. He only replied coldly. Endure it this once. That, once, repeated who knows how many times. By morning, I was completely out of it, my eyes nearly rolling back. And he still wasn't done. And the inevitable result was, I got pregnant. My period never came. I opened my period tracking app. The screen clearly showed, 32 days late. The app must be broken. Yes, definitely broken. I didn't believe it. The next day, while grocery shopping, I secretly bought another pregnancy test. 2 bright red lines. Fine, maybe the test was expired. I still didn't believe it. So I took a taxi straight to the hospital. When I got the test results back, the words hit me hard, 1 month pregnant. The doctor added, you have polycystic ovaries, it's very difficult for you to get pregnant. I froze, fingers crumpling the report. I'd never really thought about becoming a mother before, but hearing that I was someone who struggled to conceive, an inexplicable sadness welled up inside me. After all, who hasn't once dreamed of being a mother? But how was I supposed to tell him? His heart still held his white Moonlight. Would he really accept becoming a father? It was maddening. Depressed, I went home. Hoak Tuan was working on documents. When he saw me, he put them down, walked over, and sat beside me, naturally wrapping an arm around my shoulders. What's wrong? You look unhappy. Seeing the concern in his eyes, I pressed my lips together, my heart in turmoil. Should I tell him? What if he actually likes kids? After struggling for a long time, I finally gathered my courage and tested him. On the way home, I saw a family walking with a little girl. She was really cute. Do you like kids? He seemed surprised by the question. Hoak Tuan paused for a second, glanced over, then shook his head. No. Just as I'd expected. My eyes widened. He really didn't like them. That was it. If he found out I was pregnant, and I planned to secretly give birth, would he force me to abort? Fear broke out all over me in cold sweat. Hoak Tuan was startled and immediately reached out to touch my forehead. Are you uncomfortable? Why are you suddenly sweating? Do we need to go to the hospital? He pulled out his phone to call emergency services. Panicking, I grabbed his hand and shook my head frantically. No, 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 I just have low blood sugar. I haven't eaten all day. No need for the hospital. I looked up at him. Pitiful. Seeing how terrified I was of hospitals, Hoak Tuan sighed softly, fingers brushing my neck. You're already an adult, and you still let yourself get so hungry you crash. So stupid. Sit here, I'll make something for you. He stood and walked toward the kitchen. Watching his back, my lips pressed together again. I had to admit, he was really good. Gentle, never raised his voice, except for being a bit rough in bed. He was exactly the kind of man who made people fall for him. But a canary was still just a canary. How could I ever compare to the white moonlight in his heart? I knew my place. So I still had to run. Running without reason would be suspicious. I needed the right opportunity. I thought it would take a long time. I didn't expect it to come in just 2 weeks. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed Hoak Tuan staring blankly at his WeChat screen. Curiosity rose. I peeked. It was a message from his white moonlight, Lu Tuyat Nian. A photo of her birthday overseas, looking lonely and desolate. Along with a short message. I want to see you. For Hoak Tuan, those few words were a fatal blow. Sure enough, although he'd clearly been planning to go to bed, his lips pressed into a thin line. He hesitated for a long moment before finally putting on his coat. Before leaving, he turned back to look at me. His voice was low and serious. I need to go on a business trip for a while. I'm not sure when I'll be back. Don't wait up. Lock the door and go to sleep early. After saying that, he opened the door and left. I listened carefully. Only when the hallway outside had fallen completely silent did I cautiously poke my head out from under the blanket. Quietly get out of bed. And start packing my things. This was it. The opportunity had arrived. I didn't have much to take with me. Aside from the luxury items he'd bought me over the years. The most important thing was the money I'd secretly skimmed and saved up. With those two things, I hailed a taxi and went straight to my old home. Even though my family had gone bankrupt, after liquidating our assets, we'd barely managed to buy a small single-story house. Life was tight, but if we endured, we could still get by. Dragging my suitcase slowly up the steps, I couldn't help thinking, when Hoak Tuan came back and realized I'd run away. He'd probably be angry for a while. But by then, Lu Tuyat Nian would surely be by his side. He wouldn't bother thinking about me anymore. There was no way he'd come looking for me, and even less likely that he'd discover I'd secretly left while pregnant. Thinking that far, the corners of my lips curled up. I smiled to myself. Who would have thought? Just as I reached the door, before I could even let out a breath, I saw Hoak Tuan, the man who was supposed to be on a business trip, standing rigidly in front of my house. He was gripping a pregnancy test report in his hand. His gaze was icy, his voice carried a dangerous edge. Usually, when you skim a bit of money, I let it go, but this time, did you really think you could even hide my child and swallow it all for yourself? My mind went blank. I froze, lifting my head to stare at him in horror. Wait, how did he know? How did that report end up in his hands? I was sure I'd hidden it carefully. Frowning, I racked my brain, maybe because I showed no intention of confessing. Hoak Tuan grew so angry he took 2 deep breaths, then grabbed my chin. His tone was anything but gentle. If I hadn't come back to grab some documents I forgot and found that paper tucked under a pile of files, if I hadn't seen it, were you planning to secretly run away with my child? Hearing the fury in his voice, I turned my head away and muttered irritably. You're the one who said you didn't like kids. I said it very quietly. But in the empty hallway, every word echoed clearly, falling straight into Hoak Tuan's ears. He suddenly looked unsettled. He loosened his tie, his expression helpless as he explained. I thought when you said other people's kids were cute, you wanted me to secretly bring one home for you. So I said I didn't like them. Every time before, whenever you said something was cute and I agreed, the next thing you said was always, I want it, buy it for me. But someone else's kid, where was I supposed to buy that? I can't do illegal things like that. Hearing Hoak Tuan speak so much for once, I scratched my head awkwardly. So, that's how it was? Seeing my embarrassed expression, he laughed, clearly not planning to pursue it further. He reached out and rubbed my head, then took off his coat and draped it over my shoulders. His voice softened. My child, of course I treasure them. Feeling the warmth settle around me, my heart suddenly sped up a few beats. But my rationality was still intact. I looked up at him and cautiously tested the waters. Then, you're not going on a business trip anymore? And you're not going to see Lu Tuyet Nian anymore? That part, I only thought silently. Maybe noticing my sudden concern. Hoak Tuan rubbed my head harder and smiled gently. You little fool, you can barely take care of yourself. And you're talking about taking care of a child. How could I be at ease going on a business trip? Hearing him mention the child every other sentence, I felt a subtle sense of loss and lowered my eyes. So in the end, he only cared about the baby. I really shouldn't get my hopes up. Because my old place was too shabby. Hoak Tuan refused to let me stay there anymore. That very night, he took me back to the villa halfway up Trong Mountain and even hired a nutritionist just for pregnant women. He said it was to stop me from eating carelessly. It sounded considerate, but I deeply suspected it was to stop me from grocery shopping and skimming money. HMPH. Typical capitalist. I was extremely dissatisfied. But for every problem, I always had more solutions. I thought it over all night. The next morning, seeing him dressed neatly and ready to head out, I Zhu Dong walked over to help him straighten his tie. Smiling, I made a suggestion. The doctor said pregnant women shouldn't stay indoors too long. It's not good for their health. How about you give me some money so I can walk around the mall a bit, and buy some things for the baby while I'm at it? Buying things for your child. I thought, surely you won't be that stingy. I thought Hoak Tuan would agree, after all. He was about to leave for work anyway. But to my surprise, after I finished speaking, he pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. You're right, staying indoors all the time isn't good. Going out for a walk and preparing things for the baby sounds fine. Then he added, I'll go with you. I won't feel at ease letting you go alone. With that, he took off the suit he'd just put on and changed into casual clothes. How annoying. You really don't trust me at all, I thought. I was a bit unhappy, but on second thought, bringing him along meant I could freely buy high-end items without worrying about substitutes. Just thinking about it made me happy. I dragged him through the mall on a wild shopping spree, feeling absolutely no pain in my wallet. For example, a set of baby bottles, 10.999 yuan. Baby clothes, 5.999 yuan. 10 sets of formula, diapers, all kinds of supplies. I only picked the most expensive ones, tossing them into the cart one after another. Before long, the cart was so full there was no room left. Hoak Tuan didn't object at all. If anything, he was even more meticulous than I was, carefully reading the origins of the baby formula. Watching him look so focused, I pressed my lips together. He would definitely be a very gentle father. It was just a pity. This child was destined not to have a complete, happy family. I lowered my head and touched my stomach, which hadn't started showing yet, feeling a faint sense of regret. After finishing with the formula, Hoak Tuan turned back and saw me lost in thought, one hand over my stomach. He immediately tensed, strode over, bent down, and asked, What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Hearing the concern in his voice, I gave a faint smile and shook my head. No, the baby's fine. That's good. You're tired, aren't you? Let's sit and rest for a bit. I'll go buy you something to drink. He helped me sit down. Watching his gentle movements, I couldn't help feeling a pang of jealousy. Lu Tuyet Nian was really lucky. But then again, what right did I have to be jealous? Being able to cherish the present was already enough. I cheered myself up and nodded with a smile. Yes, I want coffee. The words had barely left my mouth when Hoak Tuan rejected them outright. What coffee? Drink milk. I know, sit here and wait. Without asking anything else, he turned and left. Then why even ask me? I pouted, a little dissatisfied. Still, the fact that he'd Zhu Dong gone to buy something for me did make me secretly happy. I watched his back disappear, not thinking much of it. I assumed he'd be gone 10 minutes at most, nothing unexpected could happen. But I never imagined. The very next second, I saw Lu Tuyet Nian appear at the entrance. Seeing her sudden appearance, my eyes widened in shock. Noticing my reaction, she didn't get angry, she only gave a faint smile, lifted her long hair casually, and slowly walked toward me. Each step carried the poise of a victor. When she was 3 steps away, she stopped, looked down at me from above, and spoke. So you're the Canary Hoak Tuan kept while I was abroad? You do look a bit like me. But now that I'm back, you should understand, substitutes are forever just substitutes. They'll never compare to the real one. If I were you, I'd know better than to start packing up and leave Hoak Tuan right now. Hearing her arrogant, commanding tone, I felt unwilling and instinctively wanted to retort. But after thinking it through, I suddenly realized, I had nothing to argue with her about. Everything she said was true. Painfully true. The original had returned. A replacement like me should naturally step aside. I stood up and looked at the cart piled high with items. Feeling a little regretful. Looks like I wouldn't be able to take these with me. I reached out to push the cart aside so I could step away. But the moment my hand touched the handle, the next second, Lu Tuyet Nian suddenly fell to the ground. Her pink-painted fingernails pointed at me in disbelief. I was just curious what kind of woman Hoak Tuan was dating later. So I came to take a look. I didn't mean any harm. Why would you ram me with the cart? Watching her miraculous performance, my mind went blank. What? When did I ever ram her with the cart? I stared at her in a daze, about to ask why she was framing me. But before I could open my mouth, the next second I heard Hoak Tuan's low voice echo from the entrance. What are you doing? His voice carried suppressed anger. Instinctively, I felt like it was over. This time, I was really done for. Still, I explained reflexively. That's not what happened. I just wanted to move the cart a little so I could step out. I have no grudge against her. Why would I ram her on purpose? I explained softly. But I also knew. No matter how it sounded, it all came off like a weak excuse. Because from an outsider's perspective, it really did look exactly like I deliberately used the cart to knock someone over. Lu Tuyet Nian clearly knew she had chosen the timing perfectly. Almost instantly, her eyes filled with tears. She looked pitiful, retreating even as she spoke as if advancing. Brother Hoak Tuan, she's right, I just lost my balance and fell on my own. It really wasn't her intention to push the cart into me. The moment those words left Lu Tuyet Nian's mouth, my head felt like it was about to explode. A nameless fury surged straight to my temples. Damn it. A top-tier green tea bitch. Through and through. I opened my mouth, so angry I was about to retort. But the next second, Hoak Tuan's irritated voice cut through the air. That's enough. There was impatience in his tone. I pressed my lips together, suddenly feeling ridiculous. On one side was me. On the other was the white moonlight he'd been longing for day and night. Who wouldn't favor the white moonlight? Even if I grew 10 mouths, would he even want to hear me speak? Thinking that, I lowered my head, bracing myself to be scolded for Lu Tuyet Nian's sake. Only to hear Hoak Tuan turn to Lu Tuyet Nian instead, his voice extremely impatient. If you fell, then just say you fell. Why do you need to bring something so stupid to me? I don't want to hear it. After saying that, he gently wrapped an arm around my waist. His voice softened. Good thing you weren't hurt. Seeing him take my side again, my heart started pounding uncontrollably. But I told myself it was probably because he was afraid I'd overthink things, afraid it would affect the child in my stomach. That explanation made sense. Anyone else would probably think the same. After all, Lu Tuyet Nian couldn't believe it either. She was clearly the white moonlight Hoak Tuan had never been able to have. How could things change after she'd only gone abroad for a short while? She didn't believe it. She believed Hoak Tuan was only protecting me because I was carrying his child. So, just as Hoak Tuan was leading me out of the store, His back turned to her. Lu Tuyet Nian suddenly rushed over and leaned close to my ear. Her voice was dark and low. Hoak Tuan is only protecting you because you're pregnant with his child. If you lose that child, he definitely won't stand on your side anymore. Hearing that, my right eyelid twitched reflexively. A sense of unease surged up inside me. Before I could react, the next second, Lu Tuyet Nian suddenly shoved me hard. Under the force of the push, I fell forward, my body crashing heavily to the ground, my hips hitting first. Almost instantly, a sharp pain exploded in my lower abdomen. And then, I felt a sudden dampness below. Instinctively, I clutched my stomach and saw Hoak Tuan rushing toward me. I couldn't help thinking. This time, the baby is gone. Will he still protect me after this? The pain was too intense. I couldn't hold on any longer. I blacked out. When I woke up, I was already in the hospital. Seeing that I was awake, the doctor did a quick check and asked gently, "Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere else?" Hearing the unusually gentle tone, my nose stung. I knew my body had lost so much blood, there was no way the baby could still be there. But I still couldn't help myself. With a sliver of hope, I asked, "Is the baby still there?" Maybe because I asked this the moment I woke up, the doctor looked at me for a long moment before sighing. "No." Hearing the answer I'd already expected, I pressed my lips together, forcing down the bitterness rising in my throat. I knew it. I knew it wouldn't survive. No wonder Hoak Tuan isn't here. I looked toward the door, unable to stop the sadness creeping in. But before I could be sad for more than a few seconds, I saw Hoak Tuan walk in, his hands full of snacks. Why was he back? Seeing my confusion, the doctor glanced at me and said bluntly, "There was no baby to begin with. You were never pregnant. It was just a delayed period, and the push caused the uterine lining to shed, which led to the bleeding. Also, you've always had severe menstrual pain, haven't you?" My mind went blank. What? That's impossible. I used pregnancy tests, and I went to the hospital for exams. They all said I was pregnant. Hearing this, the doctor frowned slightly but still explained professionally. "When you used the pregnancy test, did you happen to eat egg tarts?" I think I did. Seeing me admit it, the doctor immediately understood and nodded. That's it. Eating too many egg tarts can cause pseudo-pregnancy symptoms in women. As for the hospital test, you probably picked up someone else's report by mistake. I've already reviewed that report and rechecked for you. Everything is completely normal. You don't have polycystic ovary syndrome either." The doctor said all this in one breath, then answered a phone call and left. The ward instantly fell silent. Only Hoak Tuan and I remained. He still hadn't said a word. Looking at his calm, handsome face, I lightly scratched the edge of the blanket and spoke hoarsely. "You already know everything. I'm not pregnant. Your white moonlight has returned. You don't need to care about me anymore." After saying that, I pulled the blanket over my head, not wanting him to see my reddened eyes. I thought that after being this considerate, he'd be satisfied, he'd turn around and leave. But I didn't expect. Hoak Tuan sighed, walked over, and sat down by the bed. His long fingers pulled the blanket down. When he saw my reddened eyes, his voice softened as he explained. "If there isn't one this time, there can be one next time. And who told you I have a white moonlight? Where did you hear that from?" He looked genuinely confused. He even said that while I was unconscious, I kept mumbling things, "Lu Tuyet Nian, white moonlight," so much that he was completely bewildered. The doctor had even teased him, saying young people these days really knew how to complicate relationships, which had left him terribly embarrassed. Hearing him deny it so thoroughly, I blinked and couldn't help asking, "But when you were looking for a canary, didn't you use a side profile photo of Lu Tuyet Nian? And I even found a photo of you two together in your study." There was a sentence written on the back, The more someone is a fleeting traveler through the mortal world, the more they are someone who can never be possessed. Doesn't that sound like liking someone but never being able to have them? And isn't never being able to have them exactly what a white moonlight means? Even as I said it, I couldn't help feeling jealous. My reasoning felt airtight. Hoak Tuan froze for a few seconds, frowned as he thought it over, then explained. You misunderstood. He and Lu Tuyat Nian were classmates from the same department in college. At graduation, everyone was taking commemorative photos. She asked him too, and since everyone else was taking pictures, he didn't feel it was appropriate to refuse. Later, she gave him that group photo. He thought she didn't need it anymore and didn't think much of it. So he kept it. He'd never really looked at it carefully and hadn't even noticed there was writing on the back. Hearing his explanation, I frowned but relaxed a little. Fine, the group photo could be explained that way. But what about the side profile photo he used to look for a canary? Wasn't that clearly Lu Tuyat Nian? My hair isn't that long. I've always kept it shoulder length. To prove my point, I deliberately lifted my hair and shook it in front of him. I thought this would make him at least a little guilty. But unexpectedly, Hoak Tuan laughed. He poked my nose and said with a smile. You just don't remember. When I went to your school to give a speech, it happened to be the day you were participating in the top 10 singers competition. That day, you were wearing a wig, golden hair, shining brightly, your voice was like an angel's. It was impossible to look away. Hearing him mention that, I tilted my head and thought carefully. I'd participated in countless singing competitions growing up. Every time, my outfit and hairstyle were different. I hadn't paid much attention. And if I didn't pay attention, how could I remember? But listening to him, I recalled it. Back then, I heard first prize came with a 10 yuan reward. So I'd gone all out, makeup, styling, everything. That was why I'd spent a huge amount of money on that wig. I remembered I'd only worn it once. Later, I even tried selling it on a second-hand marketplace before completely forgetting about it. And thinking carefully now, that side profile really did look like me. Realizing the person he'd always liked was actually me, I couldn't help wrapping my arms around his neck and giving him a quick kiss. So I misunderstood you. Seeing me cling to him, Hoak Tuan wrapped an arm around my waist. His smile wasn't quite a smile as he looked at me and said. So, you misunderstood me, huh? Hoak Tuan raised an eyebrow. So how exactly are you planning to apologize to me? I nodded earnestly. So, how do you want me to apologize? Seeing how obedient and cooperative I was, Hoak Tuan looked very satisfied. He gently rubbed my waist and said half jokingly, half seriously. You'll find out in a few days. The sly smile at the corner of his lips made my heart sink. I had a very bad feeling about this. And sure enough, my intuition was dead on. After everything was settled, Hoak Tuan grabbed me and demanded apologies, aggressively. On the sofa, I apologized. In the kitchen, I apologized. In the bathroom, well, that didn't even need to be said. It was an intensely enthusiastic kind of apology. After apologizing dozens of times, my legs completely gave out. I had to cling to the dining table for support and turn back to look at him. Trying to negotiate. I think, I've apologized enough already. Really, if I keep going, I don't think I'll survive. My calves were trembling non-stop. And even my voice was shaking. Hoak Tuan wrapped an arm around my waist. Finally slowing down a little, he leaned close to my ear and whispered. The number of times is enough. But the sincerity still isn't. I froze, flustered. I grabbed the hand that was still causing trouble and asked. Then what counts as sincere enough? Obviously, he said calmly, getting pregnant with a baby. Hoak Tuan clasped both my hands and carried me straight into the bedroom. That night, I felt like a sandwich, pressed flat, flipped over, fried until crispy on both sides. and then eaten clean without leaving a crumb. Luckily, heaven did not disappoint effort. 2 months later, I was really pregnant. Seeing the 2 clear lines on the pregnancy test, I immediately grabbed it and ran to Hoak Tuan's study to show him. This time I bought the newest test. There's no way it's wrong. He had been in a meeting. The moment I walked in and blurted that out, he cut the meeting short with a simple, "Let's pause here," and ended it without hesitation. He stood up abruptly, took the test from my hand, and stared at it with deadly seriousness. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought he was reviewing a $100 billion contract. Seeing how serious he looked, I suddenly felt nervous. After all, I had secretly eaten ice cream a few days ago. What if it caused another accident like last time? As I was thinking that, I tugged at his sleeve. Well, it might not be accurate. Before I could finish, Hoak Tuan looked up at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly slapped his thigh. "Oh no, you ate ice cream secretly a few days ago, didn't you? Could that affect your body? Come on, we're going to the hospital." He grabbed my hand and dragged me straight out. Looking at the pure worry in his eyes, I couldn't help but laugh. So this is what it feels like, to be cherished and protected in someone's hands. It felt amazing. At the hospital, Hoak Tuan took me straight to the gastroenterology department. After several tests, the doctor suggested we go to obstetrics instead. After the ultrasound, Hoak Tuan stared intently at the report. Only after carefully confirming that it was my name, Jiang Tutu, did he examine every single word as if he were facing a dangerous enemy. When he finally saw the conclusion clearly stated 1 month pregnant, he pulled me into a tight hug. "That's great, we really have a child." Seeing someone as cold and restrained as him smile like a child made my heart soften completely. I hugged his back and smiled too. This time, it wasn't a false joy anymore. After confirming the pregnancy, Hoak Tuan immediately began preparing for the wedding. Afraid that I might be treated unfairly, he handled almost everything himself. He spent money without hesitation, buying things non-stop. Just watching made me itch with desire. One day, I really couldn't hold it in anymore. I leaned close to his ear and whispered softly, "Husband, I think I can help pick out a few things too. You're doing everything alone, it's exhausting. I feel bad." Maybe because my tone was gentle, Hoak Tuan thought about it for a moment. He probably felt I was bored at home alone. So he agreed. "Still, worried I'd get tired," he said after some consideration. "If you're bored, you can buy a few decorative items for the house." Seeing how quickly he agreed, I couldn't help curling my lips into a smile. "Yes, thank you, dear." Seeing how happy I was, Hoak Tuan frowned slightly. Something felt off, but he didn't think too deeply about it and just pulled me into bed. A few days later, though, Hoak Tuan stared at the suddenly appearing items in the house and asked, "Is this desk lamp really the one you said cost 9.999? And that vase, the one you claimed was 12.999? And this rug, don't tell me this is the one you spent 599.999 on?" He stared at the slightly frayed rug on the floor, his pupils visibly trembling. Seeing his shocked expression, I scratched my head guiltily. "You don't understand. This lamp, I bought it at an antique market. It's an auction item, very valuable, tons of people wanted it. But the owner sold it to me because he saw my sincerity." "And that vase? I heard it's from the Qianlong era. I had to move fast to get it. As for this rug, don't let its plain look fool you. It's handmade. They say families who buy this kind of rug end up with generations of descendants." I widened my eyes and lied with complete sincerity. I thought my nonsense would make him angry. But somehow, one of those lines hit the right spot. Hoak Tuan suddenly laughed. He looked at the rug again, his brows relaxing. "So that's how it is. Then that's fine." Seeing that he actually believed me, the little devil in my heart started dancing wildly. Woo woo woo, another secret fund secured. Time flew by. 5 years after marrying Hoak Tuan, I took our 4-year-old son to the market to buy groceries. When we got home, Hoak Tuan noticed that the little boy, who usually hated vegetables, was seriously eating Napa cabbage at the table. He couldn't help asking, "Why do you like cabbage today?" Little Hoak Tram held his bowl properly and answered with a solemn face. "Dad, Napa cabbage costs 50 yuan per kilogram now. Just this little bit was already 300. Mom said food that expensive can't be wasted." After speaking, he even pointed at each dish one by one. "And these green peppers are 100 per kilogram. These radishes are 300 per kilogram. Mom said these are handmade husband-nourishing foods. Very nutritious. And told me to eat more. Mom usually doesn't even dare eat such expensive things. She only eats beef that's 30 yuan per kilogram." After hearing his son's serious explanation, Hoak Tuan turned to look at me, who was happily eating beef, and burst out laughing. Having a wife who's this good at skimming money, he really didn't know what to say. But at least the kid wasn't picky about food. That seemed like a good thing too. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to China Story Tales, and stay tuned for more stories.